Hey everyone, C-double-D Music here. I'm C-double-D, and this is going to be a music review of the Joey Badass album, All-American Badass. Before we get started, I do want to note that if you notice it or not, I'll see this when I'm editing. I got like 4 fillings in my mouth this morning, so my speech might be a little weird or my face might not move according to, normality. I definitely had to get this review out anyway, and if this bothers you, trust me, this will probably be the last time I'm going to do something like this, hopefully. But regardless, this will be something we'll just laugh about later down the road. Anyway, Joey Badass is a rapper from Brooklyn, New York. He's been around for quite a few years now, had a few mixtapes under his belt along with his collaboration with the Pro Era group before coming out in the studio album scene, the commercial project scene, with his debut album Before the Money, which came out in 2015. That album was really good. If you haven't tried that album yet, definitely try that album. It's fantastic. Joey came through with a lot of thought-provoking bars, a lot of variety within the beats for sure. It wasn't all just boom bap or anything of that nature. The beats were pretty well made, and Joey came off as very charismatic and as a very compelling force for this breed of New York rap, Beast Coast as it's called, for the time to come. And I was definitely excited for what he was going to be dropping next, right after that album. Yet simultaneously I was also a little worried, considering the fact that the sophomore slump is something that has happened to many a rapper, many an artist in the past. But now that I've heard this new album, All-American Badass, I can definitely say that Joey is on the right path artistically, and I don't necessarily have to worry too much about what he's going to be coming out with in the future. Needless to say, this album is one of my top 10 favorites of hip-hop so far. This album is about 12 tracks in length. It's close to 50 minutes long, so accessible to an extent. It's perhaps a little more accessible than Before the Money was, which is a good thing for a lot of reasons, since Before the Money, while I did love that album, there were tracks that I feel like that the album probably could have done without anyway. Plus, there wasn't like one consistent path that kept me engaged from beginning to end. However, with this album, it's completely different this time around. There's not a concept per se, but one overlapping theme that Joey Badass is going for, and that's just the oppression of the black community at a systematic level. And you get an idea when you hear the opening track, Good Morning America, where it's pretty much an intro track, but even at this point, the verse here is very alarming, very thought-provoking. It really does keep you aware of what's going on with this reality we face in the social scale when it comes to police brutality and all this. This is a running theme throughout the whole project, like the track Why You Don't Love Me, Miss America. He's talking about the perception of black people, the racist perception of black people, as if it's sort of a woman or person that is hating on Joey and hating on his people, that he not necessarily needs the approval of, but would definitely see life easier if the approval was met there. He's also wondering why America doesn't necessarily view the black community or black people as desirable or even just human. You also have tracks like Babylon, where he just outright snaps and just really does show a lot of aggression and anger in his tone, which is actually relatively refreshing for Joey. There's actually a clever line here where he talks about how black people are being hung on a different tree, and they're on the executive, legislative, and judicial, the branches, as in branches of government as in a tree. You get the idea. It's a dope-ass metaphor, let's just say that. Even the closing track, American Idol, which sounds like just more so straight-up bars about how the government is systematically trying to trigger riots in the black community since economic oppression wasn't doing the job fast enough. Joey has a lot to say about the state of the black community, as well as his own state as well, like with the track Devastated and, in a sense, Temptation. He talks about his status in the rap gang in the track Ring the Alarm, which is a really dope posse track. There's not really anything that Joey himself is doing that's wrong when it comes to lyricism and rap delivery. Land of the Free especially, he's without a doubt coming off as not preachy per se, but very concerned about his future and the future of people like him. So yeah, in terms of Joey and his rap delivery and his lyricism, not really anything to report in terms of negative things per se. I do wish that maybe he was a little more compelling on the track Super Predator. The Styles P verse, while good, doesn't really compel me all that much. And weirdly enough, Static Selecta, while I do love his production, this beat in particular doesn't really keep me engaged from beginning to end. But that's another thing I do want to mention about this album. The beats on this album are, once again, really dope. It goes into a more boom bap-ish kind of vibe, but more so trying to go for a more catchier and borderline poppier sound. That's also something I want to point out with the songwriting. This album is a lot more catchier than Before the Money was, which I find pretty pleasant. Funny enough, I said in my album roundup from like way back when I mentioned this album that this is how you make pop rap. I still stand by that statement. This is how you make pop rap. You have a clear message. There are catchy hooks all over this album. I used to feel so devastated. Rockabye, 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 baby. Ring the alarm to warn your brethren. Ring the alarm to warn your brethren. I really can't take it no more. Joey really does write a lot of great hooks on this record, and he definitely works with the producers with these hooks and along with the verses particularly well, especially on the track Devastated, which was a surprise when I first heard it a year or two ago because I never really pictured Joey going this particular route with his music. But for the most part, in terms of production, you have Kirk Knight, who does a good chunk of the production here. He's a pro-era collaborator. He also raps, and his album that came out in 2015 I thought was just okay. You also got DJ Khalil, as mentioned, Static Selecta. This one fella named 1900 who does a lot of the production, and I'm particularly pleased with his results, so I'm going to keep an eye out on him for the time to come. Apart from Super Predator, there's not really a beat here that I dislike. A lot of the beats are pretty hard-hitting in their own right. Namely tracks like Ring the Alarm and especially Rockabye Baby, holy crap. But you also have the more low-key and catchier tracks like Land of the Free and Devastated, along with For My People and Temptation. Tracks that still go in a more boom-bap-ish kind of way, but not really like overtly aggressive. There's not as much variety in terms of beats with this album like with Before the Money, but still, I mean, I'm definitely pleased with the consistency and the stylistic cohesiveness all throughout this record. To wrap this up, the features on this album, for whatever reason, kind of like with the previous Joey Badass album, they all pretty much appear on the second half of the record. Schoolboy Q kills it on Rockabye Baby. It's really weird to hear a West Coast rapper really glide over an East Coast rapper's beats. And you also have the track Ring the Alarm, which I mentioned is a posse track, which has Kirk Knight on it, along with Nick Caution and Michi Darko of Flatbush Zombies. I did kind of wish that Meech had his own verse on this record, but regardless, I still ended up enjoying it a lot. I did like how he led the hook on this track. Styles P was okay. Chronic's definitely added his own flair to the track. And J. Cole, while not really one of my favorite verses on this album, still definitely brings his own and does really well on the track Legendary. So apart from maybe the intro track needing some more beef, Legendary probably could have needed a little more something more so within the beat and the J. Cole feature. And Super Predator being my least favorite track, apart from all that, not really anything negative I can say about this album. This is a dope album for hip-hop as well as a dope album for the year of 2017. Joey Badass had a moment to try to keep consistent, try to keep the listener interested in what he's doing, and he does this by coming out with a more socio-political record, but still simultaneously catchy, and that is how you make protest art. You don't just focus on the message, you don't just focus on having dope bars, you also make sure you have a very solid musical backbone. That's something more conscious rappers need to realize, and I'm glad Joey Badass is one of those rappers that understands this. So overall, yeah, I dig this album a lot. If you're into Beast Coast, if you're someone that is following that Beast Coast stuff, if you like boom bap-ish rap, if you like good hip-hop overall, if you want music that is socio-political but not preachy per se, then yeah, definitely check this album out. You'll dig this album quite a bit. This album is a plus 2.4 out of plus 3. Yeah, I dug this album quite a bit. I'm definitely going to be intrigued with what Joey Badass comes out with in the future. I'm glad Joey took his time with this, since it's been maybe 2 or 3 years since we had, well, at the time, since we had Before the Money, and if he can keep this up, then he's going to be one of the most trailblazing forces in the face of hip-hop. But if you've given this album a listen, what did you think of it? Did you like this album? Did you dislike this album? What was your reasoning for that, and what should I consider listening to and reviewing next? This is CWD Music here, signing off.